Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Vision. It started out as a slight push, a question really. How come they get to? By the time you turn 16 or 18, you see it everywhere, in everything, to the point that it makes you sick. I saw it till I wished my mother never gave birth to me. You see it in the way other girls in school don't want to try too hard at sports. You see it in the way no one really watches the women's teams. You see it in the way your friend pretends she can't run laps around him in astronomy. Or in the way your mothers are afraid to stand up to your father's brother when he tells you there's something wrong with you. You see it when he tells you there's something wrong with you. And why don't men want you? You see it in normal things. I saw it till I wished my mother never gave birth to me. You see it in every picture of God in your church. You see it in every picture of a warrior. You see it in every one of your definitions that can only be an extension of a man. You see it until it's everything. In everything. Until it makes you sick and comes out of your eyes and your body rejects it. So you're throwing it up and it's wild and it's disgusting. And your guy friends say they never mean it that way. And why are you so? And it's never their fault until, of course, they have daughters. But for now, it's not their fault or it's not their problem. But you don't know which is which, so it's your fault. Then you feel like an idiot because no one seems to agree with you. Until all the guys leave to go play video games and marry women who are beautiful and quiet. Then all the other girls at the table start to talk about how they agreed with you the whole time. Before long, you're all of you in a 2-hour-long session about the different ways you're silenced. But you're particularly mad because for 30 whole minutes, they let you throw up on your own. They let it be your fault. They became your mother. Your guy friends were all your uncle. What do I do? Noita say, my parents are feminists, my world is not. Noita say, how can I consolidate what my parents taught me against what I learned? Noita say. You see it because they don't know how to distinguish between equal and equal enough. You see it in the meeting room at work now, when you let it be okay that your presentation is now being controlled by a man who only knows half of your product. You see it in a kidnapped sentence that you let get away. You see it in the way he says, how are you doing, little lady? You say, fine, thank you. Before long, you see it in yourself. Origins of empathetic response in Homo sapien. I dreamt I saw God in her garden, watering her willows all day. I've already told you before that I was born a bucket. It's also important to note that I come from witches, prayer warriors, ghosts. I come from strong women who walked to the hospital in labor, honest prostitutes who feed hungry children but are themselves eaten, and Christians who still don't mess with black cats or owls. I don't want to take myself too seriously, but at work sometimes I randomly click on the screen so people think I'm working hard instead of having an anxiety attack. Because the only thing worse than the anxiety attack is people finding out you're having one. Anyway, back in the dream, I watched God go from tree to tree, watering the whole garden, but I never saw him once fill up a single bucket. Like I said, I'm not new to magic or miracles, but I remember that sometimes my different blood types fight until I am multiple women with tears that never let up, who all simultaneously start randomly clicking on the screen at work. In the garden, God poured away, and I watched the water turn to blood, to wine, and back to water again. I looked down and was holding my own bucket. She walked over and took it from my hands. He poured it on the willow in my backyard. You don't have to pretend you understand. It's enough for me if you think it's beautiful. Eventually I died, but that's not the point. The point is that the bucket was not made for the willow, but the willow for the bucket. And weeping was not the description for the tree, but for the gardener. 3. One bad day. I fell in love with the sun and it with me. I was kissed by the sun. I fell into the sun and it let me. The world set me on fire. The world was set on fire and scrambled. My world caught fire when for it was scrambled. God knew what bad men were coming to do, so they made me to blend in and hide in the void. Bad men came and pushed me into the void, and I began to blend in. This world is perverse. They say light and mean illumination to birth visibility. They also say light and mean pale. They say dark and mean deep shades of color. But they also say dark and mean the void. It is in this way the deep child learned that if she could be pale, she could be visible and no longer be touched by the void. But it is easy, the misinterpretation of a prayer from a dark child to be enlightened. This and a barrage of other considerations when they stare, so I ask, do you want to know how I got this dark? 4. Reasons why I cannot envy God. Because where would I draw the line? Should my rights outweigh my wrongs? Should the fact that I had a single wrong outweigh any rights I ever did? Is it simple? Or is the formula complex, including a statistically significant sample of the human population that existed in the duration of each person's lifetime, an average, a 3 sigma in the negative direction, or an even more difficult and subjective that looks close enough? And what is right? What is wrong? Before we can add and analyze any data, because perspective. The man came looking to make a home for his family, running away from war back where he came from. The man found a mansion, killed the husband, raped the wife, sent the kids out into the cold, and still makes them stay there with no water, no money, and no way to take back home. To some it was wrong because they think his name was Muhammad. But does it change your view if his name was Sam? And I'm talking about the pioneers, and I'm talking about the colonizers. First you agreed, now you're offended. All I changed was his name. Because context is everything to the perpetrator. Joaquin hit me. Joaquin is only mirroring the violence he witnessed in his home as a child, and is aggressive because of the societal pressures that exist, not to mention the impending vilification that will occur when he is arrested for a trivial offense. Because context is nothing to the victim, Joaquin still hit me. Because we did this to ourselves. Humanity kidnapped Mother Earth, ironically killing humanity in both senses in the process. Harmony died when we tipped the scales, took a little bit more than we needed and then a lot. Parasite. Climate change, fever. Water levels rising, a cold sweat. Waters disappearing, dehydration. Earthquake shivers, volcanic oozing sores. A hole in the sky outlines the infected cut. Hurricanes and typhoons flush us out, Gesundheit. Human child. Wrecked its home, now wants to find another. Does not feed its hungry, but knows which planet's moons have oil. Or, human child, left alone with a stranger, cousin Lucifer, who you knew couldn't be trusted, who already touched a third of your household, human child, knows it only has 80 years, but spends 60 trying to fix a home for its children, because you look nothing like the pictures. There is no gender for God. Only allusions to help us understand, we say, and in his image they were created. Thus God made mankind. And Elohim is strong and in control, and Elohim created. Thus God was made a man in kind. But male and female she created them is heresy. So with gender we betrayed you. And with skin we betrayed you. And with religious wars we betrayed you. And with anthropomorphic delegation we betrayed you. To make you look more and more like what we are is blasphemous, for gross misrepresentation. For in their likeness, man created God. And it's weird to ask you to understand why I'm uncomfortable to ask Father God why dads leave to make homes with other mothers and their daughters. Or a white Jesus why it took so long to free the slaves. Or why he let his kids into homes that never belonged to them in the first place. Didn't stop them when they took everything that they wanted, what we needed, and broke all our furniture and other things. Or a Christian God, why Christians kill en masse pretending to be missionaries. It is almost cruel to ask me to trust your version of God when the only acceptable translations are into things that have only ever hurt me. Because I don't want to know it all. Because the situation has always been difficult, because we failed terribly, because we gave it our best shot, because we are trying our best. We have apologies, but we also have vengeance in our same mouths. I have charges for which I must answer, but I too seek justice for all the terrible choices others made that just happened to me. Humankind is weeping, acting out, and she bullies because she is bullied. That's not a reason. It's not an excuse, it's just a reason. Because we needed one. Because we cannot even understand why we can't be trusted to be God.